USINPAC NewsX Roundtable. The subject of the discussion is Make in India and Made in India, a campaign of the Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And I'm joined by a very eminent panel on this issue. And let me introduce the panel. I'm joined by Sanjay Puri, Chairman USINPAC, Gordon Feller, Director Cisco, the Chuk founder, the Chuk firm, and Dr. Rajesh Shrotia, Chairman Spectrum Pharmaceuticals. Let me begin this discussion by asking you this question, Mr. Puri, that Indian diaspora and American Indian community is very excited by the fact that the Prime Minister is going to visit Silicon Valley. But is the business excited?
I think the business is very excited because you have a leader who is probably the most digital savvy leader in the world today. If you just look at his persona, how he communicates with the rest of the world, it's all digital. And everywhere he talks about digital India or anything else, it's about technology. And he's coming in the heart and soul of technology. And they see India, which is a young India, which has the second largest number of mobile phones. It looks at the opportunities that exist for collaboration. Look at the startup exchanges that are happening. So there's economic opportunities, but also communication and branding opportunities that exist for both sides. So I think there's a tremendous amount of excitement out there.
Gordon?
It's more than the numbers. It's more than 300 million connected to the internet, with another 900 waiting to get connected. It's more than 6% annual growth. All those numbers are attractive to companies like my own, but really what's attractive is a coherent national policy that says the country is digitizing, the businesses in the country are digitizing, the government services are becoming digital, and suddenly you have a smart cities program that really is gaining traction. This is really exciting for companies like ours who are interested in lighting up the assets in a city, parking systems, traffic systems, energy systems. This is really where the opportunity is that we're excited about.
Let me ask you a question. PM has spoken about smart cities. You mentioned smart cities, but the land has not been unlocked.
Well, look, every country that tries to stimulate digital development for cities faces real world obstacles. It's not enough to stand up as a national government and say, we now have a strategy and everybody should march in line. Landowners, regulators, existing institutions all have to be aligned, and most countries that try this, it never gets aligned very fast, or at least as fast as people want. The Chinese have had this problem, the Americans have had this problem, the European Union have had this problem. Sometimes it's land, sometimes it's tax authority questions, sometimes it's independent private financing. So it's not a surprise that there would be fundamental barriers, but Modi is the kind of guy, at least what we saw in how Gujarat changed their economic development strategy, he's the kind of guy who can plow through some of these problems and get to the other side.
Do you agree with him?
Yes, we are very, very excited. The top 10 cities of India and United States are very connected, and these top 10 cities of India we consider the 51st state. All day long we work in California and United States, and at night time we work with India. And there's 3 million Indians in the United States, about 20% live in California, 1 out of 5. For us, the Indian Pope has arrived at the same time as the Pope from Vatican City has arrived. India is a very integral part of our work, and we're thrilled that the Prime Minister is here visiting us.
Mm-hmm. Do you agree with him? Because generally it has been noticed that such visits are very high on optics. The atmospherics sometimes turns into an event, but the tangibles are not there. And I'll give an example, the nuclear deal.
You're right. I think it takes time. I think one has to realize that the type of deals you're talking about, nuclear deal, takes time. There are a lot of factions that happen on both sides of the aisles. I mean, Modi hasn't had an easy career, in spite of the fact that he had success in Gujarat. All his life he is dedicated for service. And he has so much to, he has to prove again in front of, look at the media in India. He's criticized all the time, and I sit there and I say, what is it that Indians are not seeing, which we are seeing sitting here? Modi is a man with vision. He's a man who is talking about opening bank accounts with 5 rupees and how many crore bank accounts he has opened. He's a man with vision. He's a man who's opening India to the rest of the world. I think Modi is a man that at least we Indians living outside of India are looking to him to bring India to the next level where it needs to be called as a developed country rather than a developing nation. When you think about China, where was China 30 years ago? One man can make a difference. I think Henry Kissinger opened China. I've been to China before it was open to the West. A developed country rather than a developing nation. When you think about China, where was China 30 years ago? One man can make a difference. I think Henry Kissinger opened China. I've been to China before it was open to the West. You could not go to China. You had to pay for a hotel in the United States before you could go there. And they'll ask you questions, why do you want to go to China? Today I go to Shanghai. I have a 10-year visa to go to Shanghai. I get onto a plane and I get to Shanghai. Shanghai is more developed. When I come back to Los Angeles, I feel I'm coming to a third world country when I land at the LA airport as compared to airports in Beijing and Shanghai. I think under Modi, India has a possibility of exploring its potential to its becoming a developed country. And I think Modi is on the right track, and I support him.
After Morarji Bhai in 1978, he went to the Stanford University to receive a degree. And if I'm not wrong, Indira Gandhi in 1982, she went to Los Angeles. He's the third prime minister to come, and he's going to the Silicon Valley. Is it really going to make a difference, the sort of connect he's trying to make with the startups, with an economy which is about innovations and entrepreneurship?
See, I don't think the Prime Minister is the one who's going to sign deals or set up venture term sheets or things like that. I think we need to keep some perspective. And, you know, we're all talking about Modi. It's been a year and a half. Now, obviously, the expectations were very, very high. And the challenges of a country like India are very, very immense. So let's talk about what he could do in Silicon Valley. He could assure people about the openness of the internet. He could assure people about the intellectual property rights. The leaders of a nation can give only big signals. They can't talk about this company, that company, come to this city, etc. He has to give confidence to entrepreneurs. He has to give confidence to people that there is a huge opportunity and there is a collaboration. And I think he will give those opportunities because he's one of theirs. I mean, who is better in Twitter or Facebook and understanding social media than this gentleman? So I think there is a unique opportunity that exists.
Because there is a debate in India. Prime Minister has spoken about the Make in India and Made in India campaign. But there are people who would say that it's better, not that the Make in India or Made in India is a bad campaign slogan. It's a good campaign slogan. It's a good slogan for a robust India. But they would say that a knowledge-based economy is much better.
But look, the startup culture is pretty strong. Third largest with 3,100 startup companies already in place and lots more, hundreds being added every year. So NASSCOM studied where the startup culture is most robust, and the fastest growing in the world is in India in terms of new numbers of startups. So they're mostly knowledge-based companies. They're mostly younger people coming out of the universities. The technical education in India is fantastic. We've got almost 20,000 people on our payroll in India, and you know, most of them are in Bangalore, but I think if we decided we wanted to grow that tenfold, there are enough engineers ready to take those positions. So a company like ours, who's put maybe $240 million of new investment into India in the last 10 plus years, lots of new opportunities. I think he'll probably remind companies in the valley that he's visiting and the entrepreneurs behind those companies that the investment opportunities are there. Maybe the banking system is not quite ready as it should be for entrepreneurs to come knocking on those doors. But you know, around this table, you've got a lot of the talent that's ready to consider opportunities in India. If the Indian financiers are not ready to do it, these guys are ready to do it.
Gordon, how do your non-Indian employees feel when John Chambers says that Bangalore is the second global headquarters of Cisco?
I think they love it. I think the fact that we have almost 20,000 people working while we sleep, solving problems that we make, this is great. I mean, we wake up in the morning and the Indians have solved our problems.
When I interviewed a lot of young entrepreneurs, they all spoke about ease of doing business. That was the word which I heard the most. The ease of doing business in India should improve. Do you think that, has that process happened? Has the ease come into our political language, the way the state functions, the ease of doing business, setting up a firm, closing a firm, the liabilities, the related law structures? Do you think that change has come, or it should come and has not been dealt properly, and it's all micro details?
I think there is a wind blowing in that direction. When Modi speaks, he conveys that sense that sitting here in the United States and California, I feel good about it, that now I can reach somebody. I can send an email, text message, or a Twitter to Modi, and Modi will respond to it. It didn't happen until Modi came into power. It did not happen. You were dealing with walls. When anything in the government in India, nothing was happening. I'll give you an example. I'm in healthcare industry. India is the third largest producer of health consumer products. Generic drugs, active pharmaceutical ingredients, third in the world. However, in spite of that, there's no curriculum in university that teaches anything about manufacturing of drugs. There's nothing in hospitals or medical schools that's taught about the clinical research, for example. Even today, even under Modi's administration, there are things that can improve. For example, the head of the FDA in India is a very junior officer. He's not even a physician. You know, so the whole industry is lying dormant in India. So,
are you talking about the baggy controversy?
Well, I'm talking of the total healthcare, where India can be, given the resources they have, given the population they have, and given the know-how they have. For example, I'll give you an example. The clinical research in US, first time a drug is discovered on a test tube, tested on mice and dogs, and given to human beings in the United States. You can't do it in India. We cannot take the same drug and give it to an Indian patient.
Because you have laws there.
Because there's
and different laws there.
So these laws are regressive laws. They're not progressive laws. Why is it that all the drug companies come to America to make inventions? All the drugs have been discovered in the United States. Why? Even the foreign companies, Japanese and European companies, they like to come to the US to do business because here there are open opportunities. In India, for example, in 1970s, they got rid of the patent. You cannot have a patent protection on your drugs. I think that's a disservice done to the entire industry. And I think under Modi, I hope they change the law that chemical composition is no longer protected in India. That's a disincentive for foreign companies.
Sanjay, you wanted to come in?
Just to go back to the point about Make in India. Now, you got to understand what is Mr. Modi looking at? He's looking at an agriculture sector that is really going down. Where will the jobs be? Now, I understand Gordon's put 20,000 people, but look at the number of new, the population that goes to the job market. It cannot be just filled by knowledge workers, but then also look at the other hand. India is one of the largest importers of arms in the world. It's also one of the largest importers of technology and hardware in the world. What Mr. Modi is talking about is instead of importing that, let's have some joint ventures that we can do actual manufacture so that he can actually create millions of jobs because agriculture sector is going down. Large numbers of rural people are not finding jobs. And technology can create 20,000 jobs, and kudos to him for doing that. But they need millions of jobs, and that's where manufacturing is really going to come into place. And he's talking about stuff that they're actually sending out. There's, you know, he's just going to announce this big deal with Boeing, etc. Well, Boeing should be making that stuff in India, and that would create jobs for India.
I think that's a good point, but then I again come back to my moot point, the ease of doing business. Ultimately, if you invest, it cannot be at the cost of profit.
So if you look at what the World Bank does each year, they do a study called Doing Business. I think the URL is doingbusiness.org, and they benchmark country by country. How hard is the paperwork to set up a company? How hard is it to adjudicate a commercial dispute? How hard is it to close a company? How hard is it to get a loan? How hard is it to get a permit to open an office? And slowly, India is rising, but it's slow. So there's no question that the bureaucratic process works slowly. Now, I think Modi's strategy with a campaign like this is to cut through, to have a vision that's compelling, and to get as many of that public constituencies behind him as he can as he fights the good fight with bureaucracies. But the reality is that it's not just a local affair, which is why he's here in our neighborhood this week. He's trying to essentially engage not just the NRIs, but tech companies that are not necessarily run by NRIs. They're companies of all shapes and sizes. Google Inc. is now run by an NRI, but Twitter is not. Facebook is not. Our company is not. But we're all engaged now because we want India to succeed.
Steve Jobs or with Zuckerberg. It's another to be one of them, to create something. And Silicon Valley for me is not a geographical entity, it's an idea. Yeah. Where funds are available for a brilliant idea with an appetite for risk and for both success and failure. Can that be replicated in India? You're all connected with the subcontinent in some of the ways. Starting with you, can that be replicated in India?
I think it is getting replicated in India. In fact, there might be too much good money chasing bad deals happening in India, which happened here. We have a big rush. Today, when you look at Flipkart, it was, now you could say whether it's an idea replicated based on Amazon or whatever, Ola cabs, etc. Look at the valuation. Today, when you talk to somebody who's coming out of IIM, IIT, they're not saying, okay, I'll join an Accenture or somebody else. They're saying, maybe I'll do my startup. And I think there's a fundamental shift. Now, whether you attribute it to Mr. Modi or not, it is, I think, attributable to the young generation of Indians that is happening. Money is also money. As he mentioned, the venture capital is starting to flow in. And hopefully the culture of failure will also start flowing in that, hey, the housing.com CEO, he went up in flames, but that's okay. He's 22, 24, he'll do his next one, which would be incredible, bigger. So I think shift has started to take place, but shifts like Titanic, they take a little time to move, and I think that has happened.
So I want people to remember the Steve Jobs biography, which is he dropped out of college and went to India, where it really occurred to him that you could marry art and science, the spiritual and physical. What other country in the world has spent the last several thousand years focused on marrying the physical and the spiritual? So it was because of that, the power of that idea, which he materialized in the form of Apple products, that Silicon Valley, you know, that company was born in the early 80s. Our company was born in the early 80s. A lot of the core technology came out of the notion that the physical and the material can somehow be married to each other, or the digital and the physical can somehow be married to each other. So, look, if it can't be done in India, I don't have much hope for humanity, and that's why I think it will be in India. It won't be in one place. There won't be a single Silicon Valley. Now, a lot of cities in India would like to be that place, but the truth is, I think it's going to be widely dispersed in multiple locations. It'll be because of the connection between California and India that a lot of that happens. You know, all of us here are shuttling back and forth constantly, building that bridge, and I'm sure that India is going to do it because the pointers are all in the right direction.
You wanted to say something?
Yeah, I think the youngsters are right about education. We need broader education. There is the largest university system, or the educational system in the world, is the 127 community colleges of California with 2 million students. California Constitution has a line that 6% of the budget, no matter what the budget is, must be spent on education. And it costs $6,000 a year to educate somebody at a community college system, which is a half of a bachelor's degree, 2-year community college. It costs about $6,000, and the student is only charged $600, 90% discount. And at my organization, we have a rule that we will pay the 10%. Anybody want to go to community college for dance or music or tennis or weightlifting, doesn't matter. We want you in college. 400 vocational training classes at Community Colleges of America. Community Colleges of America started in the 1800s, 8 million students now on plumbing, on carpentry, on air conditioning repair, on auto repair, you name it. So Germany, high school, the schools figure out very quickly, are you going to become a doctor or an engineer? If not, we have vocational training for you. So when you finish high school, you're employable in Sanjay's factory and at Cisco. Raj mentioned that there's 3 million graduates every year that Modi is worried about. I'm more worried about the 15 million 18-year-olds every year who are not college graduates. What are we going to do with them? There's 600 million people in agriculture in India right now, 50% of the population. In the US, 3% of the country is in agriculture, 10 million people. And the US produces far more agriculture than India does. So, and in technology revolution, we've created 10 million jobs. So the problem for India is, like Sanjay said, people are moving away from agriculture. We have to displace the agriculture workers, find jobs for them. 18 million people becoming 18 every year, find jobs for them. And then the bigger problem. India is an experiment. We're going to go from agriculture and skip industrial manufacturing and go directly to retail and services like US has. The next problem, if India were to duplicate China now and become a industrial manufacturing giant, it can't. Because when India sets up a new machine plant now, you don't need 10,000 workers. There's robots.
Okay, so let me come to the last question of this roundtable. And starting with you, what is Modi's biggest challenge, and what's the biggest opportunity staring at him?
Well, the opportunities staring at him is really the potential India has, immense potential. And you talked about Stanford University. I'll just say that Banaras Hindu University, when I go around this country, I'm amazed that how many people from South India, from Kerala, Madras, talk about their education at BHU in engineering. Stanfords are already there. They're not recognized as Stanford. So, I mean, I just wanted to answer that question. So I think the opportunities are tremendous. I mean, look at the wealth we have. Now there are 3 million Indians living in America. And they have made their name, not only in America and all across the world. You go to UK, you go to Australia, you go wherever. But not only this, in India, Indians have made a name about the manufacturing. In every segment, they have made their name. So the ground is fertile right now for Modi to do what his vision is. That's the opportunity. The obstacles, he has many. I mean, in India, the political system is so corrupt and so bad, and the bureaucracy is so entrenched that Modi, even when he orders something to be done, it doesn't get done. Because the bureaucracy is so entrenched, and he doesn't have a team. In America, if I'm the CEO of a company, I can fire anybody, and I can hire anybody as long as they're the best people to do the job. Modi cannot do that.
Mr. Chip.
Well, the opportunity is very simple. India has 17% of the world's population now, and the world GDP is somewhere around $75 trillion. And so 17% of that is, let's say, about 15 trillion, and India is at 2 trillion, so we're missing 13 trillion right now with 1.2 billion people. And so now the next issue is what's up with these 1.2 billion people? And why aren't they paying taxes? Why aren't they taking care of their country? The biggest problem with India is, an Indian says, I could live in the United States for 2 years before somebody will utter the word government. And when somebody utters the word government, I'm shocked. Like, why is the government word being mentioned? I land in India, within 30 seconds somebody utters the word government. And so what this means is that we need to strengthen our human capital balance sheet. Our 1.2 billion people are leaving 13 trillion on the table, but they need to get stronger, right? They need to get educated, and they need to get vocational training, and there should be Stanford, there should be community colleges systems. Now the issue is very simple. Each and every Indian needs to wake up tomorrow morning and make a promise we're not going to utter the word government for the next 365 days. If there is trash on the road, I'm going to clean it. If the trash is not being picked up... I think
that was the campaign of the Prime Minister. That credit has to go to him, the Swachh Bharat campaign.
Yes. Yes. People need to take care of themselves, their neighbors, their communities, their cities, their counties, their districts, their states, and the country, and stop looking at Prime Minister Modi.
Okay, Gordon?
In that spirit, if you're asking what's his biggest challenge, it's the gap that is now perceived between the promise, the vision, and where things are today. That perception of the gap is weighing on people, and the rising expectations. So harnessing the power of the technology that's now available in India, wireless that's becoming more abundant, national fiber optic network is slowly taking shape, to accelerate the adoption of that technology by business, citizens, government, to enable a faster transition, because I think the key word has to be accelerate. So we're hearing everybody say roughly the same thing, which is there is a beautiful vision by business, citizens, government, to enable a faster transition, because I think the key word has to be accelerate. So we're hearing everybody say roughly the same thing, which is there is a beautiful vision. There are lots of institutional and cultural and organizational barriers. We know what the problems are. They're pretty visible when you visit or when you live there. But bridging that gap is going to require some acceleration. And the best tool he has is the technology infrastructure that's already there, because there are fantastic networks already in place. There's fantastic technology entrepreneurs already in place. But can government and the citizens harness that to help them get through the gap? It's going to have to happen faster than it is right now.
Sanjay?
Well, I think...
he has the last word.
I don't know about the last word, but I think opportunities for Mr. Modi, if we have to look objectively, he's got low oil prices and commodity prices. That's been a big opportunity that most people don't realize, that it's been a great, in terms of his deficit handling. The other opportunity, he's got an entrepreneurial country, a country that at a Panwala level is basically entrepreneurial. And it's got a very strong democratic fiber. I mean, it's the largest democracy. The rule of law pervades in terms of transition. And you can't say that. Now, obviously, on the other side, the challenges that he faces, Gordon talked about rising expectations. He lives now in a 24/7 news cycle or Twitter cycle, etc. So the expectation with the challenge that kind of goes hand in hand, and then also he doesn't have a majority in Rajya Sabha. Those are the, I think, his challenges right now.
Thank you all of you for making time for NewsX. So this was the first edition of News Impact NewsX Roundtable.